Hi, my name is Israel Joseph. I am the founder, dean, director, and professor at Sevenaria University. Glad you can join me here today. Today we're going to talk about a subject that's a pretty deep dive, and I'm going to be quite honest with you. Not everything is going to be covered because it is a nebulous subject. So this is a free form, as all the Sevenaria University presentations are, a free-form presentation based on PowerPoints. So I appreciate you joining me. First, I want to tell you about the uh, university over on YouTube. You can get a look at that. And it's Sevenaria at youtube.com. Sevenaria, Sevenaria at youtube.com. Okay, and we're also on Facebook, Sevenaria University on Facebook. Okay, so go over and check those out. Okay, so right now I want to get into the subject at hand. Tonight we're talking about Christ and Jesus, the two gods of the New Testament, Son and man. Now, within that title, I've pretty much given away what I'm about to talk about. But it's an interesting subject, and I think many people have visited this subject before me. I may not agree with everything that they're espousing or proposing, but I have found some relatable knowledge in what I'm about to present, again, in a very free-form manner. And I think the knowledge is valuable in that there are some higher teachings within this knowledge that can help us today. And that's the goal, of course, right? To get some assistance as we trod and prod through the troubles we're facing here on this planet. So I'm going to talk about a concept that I personally think that I'm bringing to the table, but I'm sure that it's been brought before. It must have been. When I was young, I had a grandmother who was alive, and she was a Jehovah's Witness. And she was a Jehovah's Witness. She was one of those who understood that the name of God in the English translation of the Bible is actually Jehovah. In Hebrew, it's Yahweh or Yahweh, or just simply the letters. So she showed me at quite a young age, being that my brothers really wouldn't, they were like any other kids. I was a little tuned in to this kind of knowledge. And she showed me at quite a young age that the Bible, that the New Testament contained a God that died on a cross in the first four books, and a God that died on a tree in the book of Acts. And excuse me, there is the book of Acts, and also Peter and Galatians. So Peter 2:24 and Galatians 3:13, Acts 5:30 and Acts 13:29 seem to confirm that this tree existed and someone died there who was the equivalent of the New Testament four gospel God, or is equated to that God. Yet the New Testament, for gospel, clearly states that Christ died on a cross. Mark 8:34, Matthew 10:38, Matthew 27:40. Okay. Uh, Colossians 2:14. Okay. Luke 23:33. Okay. So what is going on here? What are we looking at? One is, as my grandmother, the Jehovah's Witness, showed me in my young years, that one died on a cross and the other one died on a tree. So she didn't say much more about it after that. I was really reared on the Bible. I was taught how to read on the Bible. I got to school as a young man knowing a lot about reading and comprehending because my grandmother was teaching me how to read books at a very small age. So this idea that the cross and the tree were different because my Jehovah's Witness grandmother told me this always stuck with me. It stuck with me through my 20s, my 30s, not as a foreground topic, of course, but something that generally had its mystery and kept its mystery about it. And it wasn't until I encountered what I'm about to talk about tonight, which which I was introduced to all of this many times over in my life, but you have to hear it from certain people from a certain angle to really grasp what's being said, because words, intelligence, the idea of making a point, the idea of whittling down to an idea is really super important. And I just happened to come across the right person that was able to put together what I was seeing, but couldn't really put the pieces together. And that led me to other people as well, the late Jordan Maxwell, on and on. As I said, I don't agree with everything these people espoused, but certain lessons are important. The Emperor Haile Selassie said, study everything and take the good stuff out of it and use that good stuff, but study all things. Okay, so this is really like the motto here at Sevenaria University. We study all things and take the good things. Okay, so we're going to talk about this idea. Who is this guy that died on the tree? And Paul, you have to understand, Paul, there's a whole Pauline doctrine that came out of the letters. And in my mind, I am relating this to the tree and the idea that the God of the four Gospels is teaching law, such as Matthew 5:16 through 20. Don't think I've come to destroy the law, comma, or the prophets, semicolon. I have not come to destroy, comma, but to fulfill, period. So you can really see in that whole writing there in the King James that law does not apply to the word fulfill as the churches will teach that he fulfilled the laws. No, the word prophets in that sentence applies to the word fulfill. And the word that the law applies to is the word destroy. He did not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill the prophets, if I may be forgiven for adding words to that. So let's go ahead and talk about this dichotomy between the tree and the cross. Get into that. Thanks for joining me. We'll be right back. We've got quite a subject here tonight to study. And I just want to say that no matter what you may hear tonight, and I know a lot of you understand this is coming, I mean no offense to anyone, to any religion. The belief in Jesus is an ancient belief, and I don't mean to belittle that belief in any way. Okay? That's what I want you to really understand about tonight's talk. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into my ideas here at Sevenaria University about the difference between Christ and Jesus. So, from the very beginning, cultures studied the stars. If you look up at night, say in a desert somewhere, or even in a really cold region in the north, or anywhere there's a good sky, you can see the sky really well, you'll notice that the stars are predominant and that they are literally cascading as though they were uh, fallen sugar across a black granite surface, so clear and uh, seemingly so close to the earth. The stars literally are bright when you're in the dark night and there's no moon and there's only the stars. Say in the colder months, the stars can light the ground. The Milky Way, other stars can literally shed light on the ground. Most of us don't experience that anymore because we're trapped in cities. So the light is broken up, causes a lot of other effects too for birds, which are negative, but I digress. So from the beginning of time, people studied the stars. Now I want to just kind of get into some older cultures here that did, excuse me a minute. So here we have a observatory. It's an observatory in Beijing, and the record of this goes back to 1442. And they were obviously studying the heavens. Now in the back are some other devices you can use to these individual poles here are pointed towards specific stars, and these devices could have been used to track those stars and were used to track those stars. And here we have the Napta Plata in Egypt, one of the oldest sites to look at stars. Here's a Aboriginal representation. These are all clearly, here we have some Chinese star charts. You see, they were clearly studying stars. Of course, the Pyramid of the Sun. These ancient cultures were studying the heavens, and they were trying their best to represent them. Now, just to digress a little bit, there's a belief that I have that these could have possibly been used as platforms for devices to land on, and then the god would walk down the stairs. So the device would come down, land on this platform, and the god would walk down. But that's just a fanciful theory, of course. Here's a buckskin star map from a Native American tribe. Interesting. You can almost see a pattern of a face in there with a nose and an eye. Looks like a sacred chief of some sort. The of course, pyramids all over the world. Angkor Wat, okay. The pyramids in Sudan, okay. They're all pointing to the sky. I mean, I'm literally, if this were court, I'm building a case here that these ancient cultures, they were pointing to the sky. They knew about the sun. Here's that discovery made about the relationship between the pyramids at Giza and the triple star of Orion here. And you can see that they're related because it's three of them. There are three little ones as well. Okay. These cultures were studying the heavens. Here's a Aztec sun symbol. Okay. So I just want to make that point, and I can go on and on. I have pictures, of course, the Dogon. We can't forget the Dogon. They brought us the idea and the fact, not the idea, the fact that Sirius had, the star Sirius had two planets, namely Sirius A and Sirius B. Okay. So that is pretty much a real look, excuse me, into these cultures that were obviously studying the stars. They were studying the heavens. And as I said, the heavens were a bright, obvious light formation. Strange things happened in the heavens. One of the strangest things is regularity. It's a strange thing for anything to be regular on this planet, since we know and understand that regularity is seems to be a product of artificial endowment. Nature doesn't behave in a regular way. However, if we study the more finite behaviors of nature, such as heartbeats, and over long periods of time, nature has a regularity to it. The ancients, they recognized this. And they recognized it not only in themselves and on the planet, but they recognized it in the stars. They recognized it in the other bodies, the five visible orbs that they could see, which included included the sun, the moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn were also part of, which made the seven, which contributes to Sevenaria. These seven planets moved in an irregular fashion, as opposed to the background, which was the sidereal belt, an 18-degree band of stars, accompanied by two other bands above it and below it. But we mostly see this band of stars containing the constellations we're accustomed to seeing, the ones the sun occupies in throughout the year and throughout its great year. The sun was wondered at by these ancients, and so were the other stars. So the regularity of the star systems behind the planets, the irregularity of the planets, the retrograde of certain planets, that was all a mystery to them. And they studied that mystery. And the division between what we're talking about here and that mystery, in my opinion, comes where the knowledge became so incredibly complicated and complex to understand. It became so full of names and numbers and information that otherwise could not be readily accessible, that it had then to be, as all things are, boiled down into something which was legible. Now, I believe the recordings of the Sumerians and the Anunnaki, if I can just digress a little bit here, the Anunnaki were basically all defeated by a guy named Marduk in the end. I mean, there was a lot of wars before that, whole planets being destroyed and the earth forming, but Marduk took over and he ascribed the names of the gods in relation to the planets. It is known that in the Old Testament, there are always a reoccurring 12. And the 12 is a theme, the 12 and the 1. For instance, Jacob and his 12 sons, Israel and his 12 sons, or even Jesus and the 12 disciples, or the 12 gates of Israel. The 12, again, represents the 12 not only months of the year, but constellations that are represented in those passing months. So just saying those things, we can take it back a little bit and establish that at some point, a group of individuals or an individual, according to the Sumerians, decided that it was too much and that you had to create characters out of this information. Okay, so that the planets would become heroes. The sun would become the great hero, since he contains all of the luminous, energetic, magnetic force in the solar system, lighting everything we see, including the electricity running through these little lights here. That's part of it. So it is the king, the planets are the heroes, and the sidereal belts act as angels. The sidereal belt, the constellations act as angels and messengers. Mercury, the planet's a messenger, but these are so they had to find a way to study what I'm getting at, this complicated knowledge, and put it into a palatable way that people can swallow it. They can accept it. So we have the sun, we have Mercury, Venus, the Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Okay? And they knew that he was the king and that his opposite end, if he was the hot king, if he was the the hot fireman, right, that they first had to simply understand, okay, he's hot. Then they assigned the coldest man to this guy. So he's cold. So I'm building on how you are to understand how this transfers down in. I'm as above, so below. So they understood he's the hot guy. So Saturn became cold, because to the human eye from Earth, little old darling Earth here, he was the furthest away from the sun. He was the furthest from the sun. And he took the longest time in his orbit to go around the sun. Everyone else took a shorter time, right? He took forever. Who is this guy? His name is Saturn, right? Are you recognizing the sat, the turn? Okay, because the sat is, of course, Saturday, but it is also satisfaction. All the sat, even you sat down. Okay, what are these all getting at? Some sort of self thing here. Saturday is the day you don't do anything for, you just kick it. You just kick back. That's Saturnalia. That's the Sabbath. You sat down, you know, on and on. So what it's really getting at is Saturn is the cold boy. He's cold, and he must be like when you get the winter, right? When the winter comes, you're cold. When the summer comes, you're good. Winter, not good. Summer, really good. Okay? So he gets the title of the winter. And there Saturn stays in as the winter god. And they have now the winter soldier and all that stuff. Okay. Back on the sun now, the hot boy. This guy goes around really fast. He's closest to the sun, Mercury. He's closest to the sun. And they gave him, because he's closest to the sun, if you're closest to the boss, you're the man. You're the messenger. You're the word of the boss. You're sending the boss is too busy, and you got to do the work. So Mercury became the messenger of all these guys here. Okay? In the nighttime, they understood that when you look up from your, if you can see where I'm drawing, when you look up, say, from your little mountain here, and the sun is down on the other side here, it's already set, and you're watching for the stars to come up. In other words, you're over here is the east, right? The first star you see is this planet. The first light you see is Venus. And so Venus gets the attribute of beauty, and she brings forward all the constellations, because after her comes all the sidereal band. They all follow after her at night, but she comes first. So she gets the beauty. I'm explaining how these planets operate and why they were turned into people and how it was possible, because they do act like people. He stays away from the sun. That's hysterical. Everyone needs the sun to survive. How's this guy staying away? So it's interesting. The Earth, of course, is us. Then we have the moon here, which gets lit by the sun. Okay, the moon gets lit by the sun, so it's very special. And Sevenaria will teach that the moon is actually the avatar, of Venus. Okay, so the moon is the avatar of Venus projecting herself here so that the sun can glorify her. Sorry. So that the sun can glorify her for us, that she can shine her light down. You getting that? Okay. The moon is the avatar of Venus. And then we move on to Mars, who's sort of the god of war. But Mars is just red, so they call it the god of war, but it's red. But it actually, you know, it has specific qualities that oppose the sun. And it is basically the opposer. Then we have out here, we have Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is a huge planet, huge, okay? And it's got the ring, it's got the, you know, a huge storm brewing on it. But Jupiter is Peter, the rock, but it's Peter. It's because AEIOU. So you have a U. You can change it to A. So it can be Jupiter. Jupiter. And then you get into Ham, Shem, Japhet. But not that deep. But it's okay? And Peter, which is the rock. So this is who is known as Jah. This was originally the heavenly archetype. Hear me now. Again, no offense to anyone. This is the heavenly archetype that represented Jah. Remember, I told you that the moon is an avatar of Venus. Jupiter can put his avatar on the earth as well. Ah, dig that. But so can Saturn. And this is where we come to now. Saturn, who is responsible for bones and flesh, since it is the outermost planet, and this is of the inner stuff that holds you together. Bones are the outermost, for sinew is within, and the flesh holds everything on the outermost. So an outermost planet controls outermost properties. And this planet, because it is bones and flesh, because it is in charge of that, is been called Saturn, or okay. So here I'm showing you what was the secondary, or depending on how you look at it, the first understanding about us, about who we are and where we are and what we're doing. This sun, without the sun, we could not live. There's not a being on the planet that can exist without this guy. We don't really know if without these other guys we can exist. We don't really know, but we definitely know without a shadow of a doubt that if this went out, we and everything else would probably go out as well. We would certainly go out. It would be freezing. So he's in charge. Now that took me how long to explain that? That was a good 20 minutes maybe. Imagine the teacher that had to explain this in the old days without the use of writing or maybe with writing, and having to do it on a detailed level year after year for student after student, it became, and then more and more information, of course, is added to this. I have not told you about anything. This is the surface level information. I haven't told you about the mathematics behind all this. They had to teach the mathematics behind all this. Can you imagine? Well, you know, inevitably, this turned into something else. As I said, he's the boss. He's the boss. But don't we all have a boss? I mean, we've all worked. And we know that the boss is a person, a very powerful person that has desires and wishes. And what this person says goes. Just like the sun, what the sun says goes. So they did this. They said, all right, let's do that. Instead of talking all about this path of these things, let's just make it a story. Let's start here. Point A, it's a man, not the sun. Forget the sun. It's too abstract. You say what I'm saying? The word is abstract. This is abstract for most people. You can't go to church, but I want to be able to teach this. The idea of Sevenaria is to get us away from this mistake. Although the mistake is based in reality, because the sun does appear as a man, but not every man can appear as the sun. So they did this. And this man became the hero. He became the hero. Or the god. And he was known as the dying god. Right? The dying god is a concept, even in itself, gives itself away. The god comes and he goes. Look at the stars. The stars come and they go. Okay, so the sun comes in, the sun, which is a star. The sun is a star. Just like the constellations in the sidereal band, that is a star as well. We are living under a star. He's truly the star, right? He's a star. We talk about stars and all. This is a star. And the star shows up in the day because we are rolling towards the star, or the star is elevating above us. And it goes away at night. And in the winter, it goes all the way to the south. And in the summer, it comes all the way to the north above our heads. So he's going and coming. And the other part about that is in the sidereal band, these are also going and coming, going and coming. They're and then in the entirety of the sun's voyage through its great year, in its voyage through its great year, it too is coming and going, because what happens to it is it too encounters this matrix, and it is moving backwards in its great year. 2100 years for each one of these. Right? And each one represents 2100 years of an age. It's moving backwards. So the sun is coming, but it's also leaving here. But it's coming back, isn't it? So it's leaving. It's leaving, but it's coming back. Look at that. You have a phenomenon here. That's a phenomenon. So there's always someone coming. So he is returning. But keep in mind, they took the sun now with light. Now the concept that he is a lit being, he's lit. But people don't glow, so they had a problem. They're like, how are we going to make this guy light being? Well, this is what they did. They said knowledge and wisdom is light. And that's true, isn't it? It's ethereal. It cannot be quantified. It can't just be my thoughts on this video are being captured by a video camera, but you still can't reach out and grab them and hold them and take them and steal them. They're my thoughts. And just like the sun, you can't steal the sun. You can't steal thoughts to create them on your own. You can steal them and portray them, yes, but you can't steal them and create them. Create more thoughts on those levels. So the knowledge then became light. So then, if you follow me now, they took the sun and they brought it down to teach, right? To teach. And why would they need to teach this? Let's establish this. Because if you knew the path of the sun, if you knew the path of the sun, you would know how to farm. You would know how to, plan for winter. You know about crops. You know about fuel. You know about when the wood was dry, right? For example, you know about a lot of stuff if you knew the path of the sun, and then if you included the moon, why you knew where to fish. You know, fish. Fishing is important because a lot of specialized fish come out at the moon. You see, so fishing. So already we have farming, we have fishing, right? And everything that goes along with fishing. And also coastal activities, not just fishing, but the tides go out on a full moon. So if you have full moons, then you have sand, sand, I guess it would be collecting for shellfish. For the shellfish that live in the sand is what I'm trying to get at. So if you knew the path of the moon, the sun, and the moon, you'd be pretty good. You'd be doing really well. You'd be the person in your village if you knew this stuff. And also, if you knew where the planets were, then you're getting into something deeper here. Then you're getting into behavior. Okay, once they started studying the planets, they started getting into behavior. And the behavior of all of this, and the behavior of nature and man. And let me clear up something. Man in Sevenaria will always mean male and female, because we have the man and the womb. Man. You just took out an M. If you re-include that M, you get the womb man. So you have the man and the womb man, the man and the man with the womb. So we are all man in the eyes of God, and this is why the King James Bible uses the word man a lot. People get confused by that word man, when he doesn't say male. Sometimes, yes, it's male priests and all that stuff, but a man, when he says man and mankind, he is talking about the womb man and the man. I am a man. A female is a womb man, which distinguishes her as being special because she can bear a child, which is a miraculous thing. But I digress. Okay, so you're into when they got into the planets, they got into the behavior of things. And even in this subject with man and womb man, they got into behavior. And then when they got into the sidereal or the tropical band. Sounds like a great group, huh? Tropical band. That's probably some good reggae going on right there. They started studying, it became philosophy. They started studying behavior on the behavior of the behavior. On okay, so this is how this was done. They learned quickly that if you can learn the sun, okay, then you can farm, you can plant for winter, you can get your crops done before winter, and you can find the fuel as it's drying and do all that good stuff in the sun as well, collecting water, all of that. You know what you do in the sun. What am I explaining what you do in the sun? The moon is good for fishing. The moon is good for a lot of things. The moon is also period. A woman's time of the month is sometimes associated with the moon, from what I hear most of the time. So this is also another good thing to know about the moon, the cycle. That cyclical cycle, fishing, full moon, all of that. So, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier, ladies. Of course, the full moon has to do with your menstrual cycle. So planets, then they began to study the planets. So they moved 1, 2, 3, right? And they began to study the planets, and that told them that, hey, there were, this is like the Lord. This is like the Lord God. This is the Almighty, which is the demiurge, the Almighty, and this is just the highest level of non-intrusive. And so non and positive at the same time. So they began seeing the path of the sun as the Lord. And again, the Lord is the boss, right? That's the boss. And then the moon, well, that's why I got confused here. This is not correct. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to erase that. I confused it a little bit. The planets would have been the Lord God. Bet you got real confused right there. And then this would be the Almighty. And because this is live to tape, I wish I could take that back, but I can't. So that's the way life is. So they see the sun and the moon as wife, and this is Mary Magdalene. Okay, just to jump ahead a little bit. So they're married, they're together. And then they move up to the planets, and this is the father, so they're kind of behavior quality in these here. And then the tropical, because in the planets you have the father, right? You have Saturn, who the Greeks call Kronos, who ate Jupiter. He ate Jupiter, but Jupiter escaped. We know him as Zeus. Oh, that's spelled wrong. Sorry about that. And then that became Jesus. You see, so all of this stuff with the planets is connected. So they went from the sun, the planets, the moon, the planets, behavior, nature, man. They went through all of the behavior of these planets upon each other, and then they went through how the tropical band, that sidereal band I told you about that Venus leads into our evening, where you see all these constellations before the sun rises again. That tropical band here, they figured had an effect on all of this stuff. It was going down for all this because of the tropical band. And then this had an effect on this. So we're looking at this. And these two were together. They were kind of in an orbit, having an effect on the planet Earth. You see how that works out? So again, we have the concept of the Lord. He's the Son. See how that works out? They brought it down to the earth. They were really keen, and they did this. They said this is a better way to understand it, because in reality, even if you don't understand all of this part of it, you need to know this. You need to know how to farm. That's super important. You need to know how to fish. You need to know when your ladies need your help. You need to know how to plan for winter. This stuff is important. See, the path of the sun and the moon are super important, and they knew that. And so they had to teach kids. Get it? It was the kids that had to learn about this guy here. The kids could not learn about all of this. They were not digging this. Too much information, and it was overwhelming. But once you gave kids the constellations, let's just divide these in half and make it 12. As men, 12 guys. You can't see that, can you? Let's start again. Once they divided the constellations, and we're dividing these into two parts. There's 6 and there's 12. So once they divided the constellations, they made 12 individuals. And then once they figured out the sun, they made him. And he was the leader of all of these guys, as he is in the heavens. So they taught the kids this. They said, all right, he's the leader. right? So he's the leader of all these guys, but all they are these guys, the constellations. That's who these guys are. The 12 disciples, the 12 sons of Israel, the 12, everything is this guy. And the one hero is this guy, is the sun. Okay, so it was made easier for them to understand. Okay? So let's go ahead and talk about some of the first cultures that studied the sun and the difference between sun study and sun worship. Because obviously there's a difference between sun study and sun worship. And here at Sevenaria, we're going to try and differentiate between the two. And put it on pause for a second and clean the board. Okay, I'm back. So we're going to talk a little bit, as I said, about the first cultures that were really proactive in noticing everything we spoke of before, as far as the sun and turning the sun into people. And we'll go on to talk about how some of these people were actually the sun. It turns out the sun can manifest itself in what is known in the East as an avatar, a personage. But we'll get into that. So probably one of the most ancient cultures is the culture of Samaria. The Sumerians had a bunch of beings. I'm sure you've seen these guys. They have a large beard, foreboding faces. They usually have these kind of hoods on, hats on, and they're usually holding a pine cone of some sort with a tree, right? And they're usually, I'm sure you've seen that. Well, they said that these gods arrived from the stars. Now, here we have a connection that a lot of UFO, and believe me, I have been down this rabbit hole so deep. I met all the snakes, not literally, but I met all the rabbits and all the snakes down there. And so I'm very interested in the subject. But what I can tell you is, outside of the idea that actual aliens came, there is the idea that these on the planet Earth were changed to men, or men and women. And the first cultures that did that were the Sumerians. That the Anunnaki were not actually men with wings, right? They were not actually guys with wings, but what they were the heavens. Guys with wings in here. At Chichen Itza, there's a wall. I believe it's, or maybe it's Tiwanaku. And the god is in the middle. And the god represents, he's crying, you know. And they wonder why he's crying. But that's the tears of the sun. This is gold. Because gold was called the tears of the sun. He's the sun. And then he has all these little guys around him. They look like angels with wings. And they have little feet. And they're like in a praying stance. And they're all surrounding the statue. These are the constellations. Some of them are the planets. So rather than the gods came down and taught man how to cut the stone in precise manners, people figured this out and accredited it to the sun and this is the way it went. And the planets. Okay, so from now on, when I mention the sun, I mean all of it: sidereal band, the sun, and the planets. Okay, I can say all of it, but sometimes I don't. And what I really mean is all of that. So they credited that to the workings in the heavens. And so rather than aliens, which I'm going to deal with on another subject, because I also believe that aliens arrived here, but we'll do another class on that. We're going to talk about the idea that the sun was made into men, the representation of it. Okay, so the Sumerians had elaborate stories. If you follow the late great Zecharia Sitchin, he explained these stories as people. He did exactly what the ancients would do with stories about the planets, although, according to him, they are stories about people. Well, this is what we're talking about tonight. The version I'm going to teach tonight, not saying that this is the only version I subscribe to, is the version that it is not about people, but it is about the stars. Because whatever version I subscribe to, I've got to teach both sides. So the stars and the sun and the moon are now being taught to children as men. Children are not learning the intricacies of the orbits of the planets. They're learning about people who traveled from point A to point B to point C and did things in these locations. Specifically, like Jesus going to see John the Baptist will turn out to be the sun entering into February. Because that's when the water starts melting. That's the Aquarius. That's when the ice starts getting out. So the sun is coming back. He gets blessed by the first waters, the first melting of the waters. February, Aquarius. Jesus proceeds to John the Baptist, who bathes him in water. Well, I won't go too far because we're getting there. So they started teaching children about men. Okay, and as I said, that god is, according to Zecharia Sitchin, a god named Marduk. And according to everyone, I think, Marduk took control of everything about 2100 BC, again, an age that is connected with the Great Age, and changed everything. Okay, so, but in actuality, a realistic view of the sun appearing as human beings would be in the cultures of the ancient Egyptians. Okay. Now that image is rather old, but if you look really carefully at this image, you can see that she is dressed in the sun. She's wearing the sun. And the sun is above his head with two serpent-like protrusions. So she's representing the sun, but she's representing the light of the sun, which is why she's yellow, you see? She's representing the light of the sun. And he is representing the earth. This is Osiris and Isis, brother and sister. This is why he's red, like the red ground of the earth. She is blessing him with her sunlight. Okay? So the sun, here she is again. And we can just keep going with her. So Isis represents the sun. And so does Osiris. They all, in Egypt, in some fashion, represented the sun. But they also represented the other planets as well. So in those days, a mixture of things happened. People made themselves pharaohs, and the sun itself came down as an avatar and made itself a pharaoh. And the moon came down and made herself a bride. And the other planets in the constellations did this as well. But men and women on the planet kept doing it too. You know what I mean? So you see there's a difference here. But so this is a mystical thing that's happening, because at the same time I am saying that the sun is who these heroes are, I'm also saying that the sun is a hero. That the sun can appear as a person. So claiming that people are the sun is not far-fetched when they realize that the qualities of the sun can appear in a person. And that's really what I'm saying. Qualities, leadership, sacrifice, giving. What does the sun do? Check out the sun. It has a path. It has the solstice and the equinoxes. Here on the equinoxes, it's 12 hours strict lights, 12 hours strict night, 12 hours strict lights, 12 hours strict night. You're on the solstice, shortest day of the year, longest day of the year. That's constant. He doesn't change. It goes round and round, this whole thing. And every morning at 6 a.m., the sun is rising. Every evening at 6 a.m., 6 p.m., excuse me, the sun is setting. The sun is a boss. It is following rules, it is under rules, and it is being ruled. Not only on its own, but by other rules. Now, this gets me to Genesis chapter 1. And we'll get back to Egypt, but we can cross over now, because in Genesis, (1:16) and 1:18, 1:16 we read, and God made two lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And if you listen to me carefully, I said he made the greater light to rule. As you can see, it says rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. And so we know that that is the sun and the moon ruling. Now, the word in Hebrew, because we know that's English and this was written in Hebrew, is actually a word, memshala. It can be found in Strong's Concordance, word number 4474. Okay, this word here is actually what the word rule is standing for here in that verse. And it means, as you can see, it's memshala, and it means to rule also in a realm or a ruler, dominion, governance. So you need to be conscious. The sun is ruling. The sun is conscious. It's derived from Hebrew word 474 again. So you can read what that is. Dominion, one that rules. And then we have for signs, because in Genesis 1:14 he says he leaves the stars for signs, and that simply means oath, as we can see where we get our English word from, oath, mark, token. So these things in the heavens, the sun, the sidereal band, the tropical band behind it, the planets, they all have a rulership in some sense over us. The ancients recognized this, and they began to assign the qualities of these planets to look for qualities in men, the qualities of these planets. As I talked about the sun, but the other planets have qualities as well. The moon is an avatar, so it belongs to flesh. It is a like a skeleton, so to speak. The moon is a very lively planet, but it's an avatar. It has its properties in a very shallow or a very deep radiance, which the moon displays. Sometimes you can't see the moon at all. When the moon returns from its day you can't see it, that's Monday, moon day. That's moon day, because Monday, again, removing one letter, moon day, just like the woman removed the letter. So they started looking for the qualities in these people, and they did find them. They found them. But every now and then, a being with supreme qualities and actually extrasensory and extra physical uh, powers appears. We've heard about these beings throughout time, every couple thousand years. Why is that? Well, the sun, every couple thousand years, it's 2100 years. You know the deal. Times 12 equals approximately between 25 and 26,000 years, give or take. And so the sun goes through its cycles, and it appears every time this cycle ends, the sun takes an avatar. I believe that's the way you spell avatar. So every time the cycle ends, and there's 12. I already did that, times 12. So every time the cycle ends, the sun takes an avatar and comes down. But in between the cycles, you have men playing leader or sun. Men playing leader, men playing the sun. But when it is ends, as I said, the sun takes on the avatar. And of course, the Rastafarians understood this with the Emperor Haile Selassie, who appeared as the Lion of Judah. Well, Judah is just another word for July, which was actually his birth month. The Emperor Haile Selassie was born in July. The Lion of Judah is the sun in, this is astrological terms, the sun in July is known as the Lion of Judah. So when His Majesty came and sat on the throne and said, I am the Lion of Judah, he claimed that he was this avatar. But didn't say that. Of course, he doesn't have to. But people like myself who knows what's going on, when you say you're the Lion of Judah, you're saying you are the sun coming to end the age. Haile Selassie was how the sun appeared in his avatar to end the age of Pisces. Right? And so he brought the age of Aquarius. Sorry, that's so better. So to end the age of Pisces, the sun appeared as an avatar, as the Lion of Judah, and ended and brought the age of Aquarius, which we're living in right now. Anyway, so these cultures understood, including the Hebrews, as I showed you here, in the first book of the Bible, understood that the sun was left in charge. And actually, the second page of the Bible, I showed you that. Now I want to talk about what happened along the way with these cultures, because what happened along the way was the difference between acknowledging the sun and then worshiping the sun. And all of these cultures across the world fell into sun worship as opposed to sun acknowledging. And this is what we're going to talk a little bit about now. So it's well known across the world, the cultures of the Americas and other cultures worshipped the sun. We're kind of sure that Egypt worshipped the Egyptians of the first dynasty or second dynasty may have worshipped the sun. Preceding dynasties certainly worshipped the sun. But we seldom understand that the Hebrews at some point began to worship the sun themselves. Everyone else was doing it. But the Hebrews began to do that. But they really equated that with the God I was talking about in the creation, which when creating the world left the Mimshalas, the Mashals, the Oeth with the star systems and the sun. And there was a confusion between worshiping and acknowledging. And unfortunately, all the cultures began to worship the sun, including the Hebrews, as it says here in Kings, the book of Kings, 2 Kings 17, 16. And they left all the commandments of the Lord, their God, and they made them molten images of 2 calves and made a grove and worshipped all the hosts of heaven and served Baal. So they worshipped all the hosts of heaven. Okay. And we have again here in Ezekiel, who was very, very, very revealing of what was going on. He says here, then the Lord brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was towards the north. So they were standing there towards the north. And behold, there sat a woman weeping for Tammuz. Then he said unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. And he brought me unto the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs towards the temple of the Lord, and their faces towards the east. Now they were facing towards the east, and they worshipped the sun towards the east. And he said to me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a right thing to the house of Judah that they commit such an abomination, which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me with anger. And lo, they do put the branch to their nose. So it is said here that they had their backs towards the east, and they did definitely worship the sun. Okay, they worship the sun. So it was well known in these ancient cultures that everybody did this because people were afraid of the sun. They were literally afraid. And I'll just have to pause for a minute. So they literally began to worship the sun. This, of course, became an issue because there was a contrast between the one that created the sun and the sun itself. Okay? And therefore, as I said, to quell that problem, there was the sun, the thing that created the sun, and therefore they felt there could be a third part, a person. And so they began to create men sons. Here's the Egyptians, as I showed you earlier. What they're doing here is they've literally brought down some other sons. The bell of Orion, of course, those are sons, and they brought them down into the earth and built the pyramids. Now, this happened in 10,000 BC. How do we know this? Because the paws of the lion of the Sphinx is pointing towards the constellation of Leo in 10,500 BC, not as it is now. And that makes a lot of sense because if they're going to build a lion, which the face obviously originally was, it's too tiny to have been the original face, right? The face as it is now. It was obviously a lion pointing towards the constellation of Leo, 10,500 BC, marking that they were looking at the stars as well. So the interesting part about this is that Isis and Osiris, the gods we were showing you earlier, they had a son. You know, I'll just digress for a minute. In the old Germanic language, S-U-N is S-O-N is interchangeable. It's the same thing. Your sun is the light of your life. And the sun is the light of your life. And everyone else's too. It's the same thing because vowels are important. None, no, in the past. That means they're interchangeable. Is that an I? Interchangeable. They're interchangeable. So U and O can be either one. So it's the sun, the sun, the sun, the sun, the sun, the sun, the sun. Okay? So they had a son, Isis and Osiris had a son named Horus. Horus. Again, we have Hor, Horus. Okay? And if you look, there's an O, which is a vowel, there's a U. So you can have Hyrus or Hyras, which is the Ethiopian lord or noble one, the Hyras, right? You can have Hey, Ha, you can have all the vowels, A, E, I, O, U. So you can have he, hi, ho, hu, ha, he. So, and then you can change all of these as well, have the different version of these. Why am I doing this? Because these are prominent letters in the sun, in the name of the sun. Prominent sounds in the name of the sun. Another thing, when you ask what, because they had a son, right? But he was the sun. So he represented the sun. Horus was the sun, like a baby, but he was also the sun. And so when you, even today, his name is used, they just made it like an anagram, like they mixed it up. Hours, you want to know what hour is it on the clock? Is it 3 o'clock? You're really asking, where's the sun, right? Because the sun makes the hours. If it's setting, then it's late. If it's rising, it's early. He is Horus. So really, they've given you the name Horus all over again. They just mixed it up. They mixed up the letters. So you're asking, what hour is it? What hours is it? Hour is it? You're asking, where is Horus? Where's Horus? How do we know where the god is? So Horus became not only the sun, but he became the sun as well, and the god, the supreme god now. So he was the pharaoh, the supreme pharaoh. You know, they put him at the top. He took over everything. And he was the one who lost his eye in a fight with his brother Set. And if you look, Horus is the first light. He's missing an eye because the sun is just in March and is just peeking over the horizon. So Horus is missing an eye. He's only peeking. When he's in July, he's the lion. No one can defeat him. June, July. But when he's over here, he's set. He's set. He's seen it all, though. He's got both eyes. Because he's seen the whole path. See how that's working out. He's seen the whole path. So he's set here in the darkness. He's set. Here he's rising. He can only peek. He doesn't know what's coming. Here he's fully knowledgeable. So he's set. So Horus has one eye. And his one eye is one aim to go across the zodiac to become the lion. But he also knows that he has to set. He has to defeat himself so he can go down and sleep in December and give all of this system a break. So Horus does all of that. And this is the way, because he was the sun, this is the way they represented Horus in Egypt. So you can see that he is a falcon and that he has the sun disk on his head, and that's a snake symbolizing wisdom, symbolizing that his brain is completely open. Oops, I'm sorry, guys. That's what happened. Symbolizing that his brain is completely open and he's receiving that secret, potent, he's receiving that potent knowledge. That's what that means, it's not evil. The cobra has a potent venom, just like knowledge has a potency to kill the old person. When a cobra bites you, it kills you if you don't get help. Just like when knowledge bites you, it kills the old person. You see things differently. That's why they use a snake. It's not not evil. It's just symbols. Okay, it has nothing to do with evil. And he was the sky god because he's a bird, because he's the sun. The sun is like a bird, it's like flying. But you can see he's a man. He's not a bird, he's a man. Look, there's his arm. You see a bird with an arm like that? He's a man, symbol of the sky. So this is how they represented him. They also had a deeper symbolic representation of Horus, which looks like this. Now you see Horus as his spirit self, right? You see him elevated in the sky. He has become he's become as the leader of Kefre. Kefre is the chauffeur. He's a chauffeur, and he's sitting in the sun, and Kefre is chauffeuring the god Horus with his wings around, and you can see that he's holding his own little son as well, which is possibly Nibiru, but it's really that he's turned into a scarab beetle as opposed to a bird, and he's now rolling the sun. And because he's one with Kefre when he's like this, Horus is one with Kefre, and the snakes are now being fed by him. He is the controller of wisdom. So you can see where they put the sun. The sun was super important to these people. What do you see here? Let me hold that again for you because I don't think I did it. What do you see? Can you see the similarities between those two? Now, some people may take a while, so I'll hold it up. The disc in the middle, JHS, looks like the sun. One on your left, the one on your left. You see the angels around the one on your left here. But the same image is here. Everything's missing are the wings on the sun, but the wings have been put on the angels. Here. It's the same image. Now look at this. It's as though magic were being done. It's the same image. same image. Because he is the Son. The Jesus of the four Gospels is the Son. And the Jesus of the letters from Paul is a man. The Jesus of the four Gospels is the Son. His 12 disciples are the constellations in the tropical sidereal band. Mary Magdalene is the moon. And we are to acknowledge that the largest organization concerning Jesus on the planet is in full agreement that he is indeed the Son. He's pointing up to his headpiece, which is sun. This is Ra, the sun god, or Horus. And so what we're getting at, now this is the symbol of Horus, is it not? The all-seeing eye of Horus? Or is it the, here we have again the all-seeing eye, or are we looking at the fish? You see? You see? Horus. I see a fish there. Jesus. There's a fish. And there it is all together as one. There's quite a similarity between the two. So we're looking at the sun and why the fish thing. Well, there's a few reasons for that. One of the oldest surviving Egyptian tribes is known as the Dogon. They live in Mali. And 700 years ago, they told the West all about Sirius A, Sirius B. They told them all about Horus in Egypt, over in Timbuktu. They taught all this. And the name of their god was the Nomo. And they were fish. They were, well, they weren't fish, actually. They were half men, okay? And they had a fish's tail. So they were actually, what I meant to say was they were mermen. They were mermaids. And they were the ones who really gave the Dogon in Egypt, out of the Nile they came, in ships and different. They also landed. There's a whole Dogon ritual. I talked about this on the last video of these, the bullhorn being spun and spun and spun. It's a stone with some holes in it. Makes a noise when you spin it on a man spins it on a stick, on a string, spinning. Makes a lot of a noise. They say that's the noise the vehicles made as they landed. These beings came out of the water of the Nile, and they look like fish. Right? So that's where you have Dagon and all of these, the Dogon, of the Bible. Sure you've seen that guy. Dogon is Dagon, because you can A-E-I-O-U. Remember, A-E-I-O-U, and sometimes Y is all interchangeable. So do that, and you'll see different words. Words will become like a little magical if you do that. So then, like, So they met the Dogon. 700, the Dogon confirmed all that stuff. So they knew kind of the Bible was serious, because here are these guys out in Mali, not really connected with that, but yet they're confirming what happened there, and more, because they told them about Sirius A and Sirius B that had never been seen by the human eye. They had intricate star maps that they created, that they presented. Here, the Dogon here, they're great people. You see, even their outfits are special, because what we're talking about is stars, the star systems, okay, and the constellations, and these are the sidereal bands, the tropical bands. This is the sun, and this is the earth, and they're talking about the journey of the beings from the heaven to the earth. And here's their map of the constellation. Before anyone knew about it, they drew that, they knew that. They were telling about Sirius A, Sirius B, Xylanthia, okay? So that was the real thing that they encountered here in Mali, that let them know that Horus was the sun, and that they actually did meet some beings, and that the sun had appeared here in the form of these creatures. So now we get into later times, whereas as we see, the Hebrews before the Babylonians rode in, worshipped the sun. So now we want to get into the crux of this video, which is the sun in the 4 and Jesus in the letters from Paul. So you're talking about the sun, you're talking about Jesus. 2 gods. Why do I say this? Well, in order to understand what I'm saying, let's just listen to a little bit of the scriptures. Now, I'm going to confirm that in the book, in the Bible, that Jesus died on a cross, is what they're saying in the New Testament. So it's Mark 8:34, and calling the crowd to him with his disciples, he said to them, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Well, that's a figurative saying. Okay. Matthew 27:40, and saying, thou that destroyed the temple and buildest it in 3 days, save yourself. If thou be the Son of God, come down from the cross. Colossians 2:14, by canceling the record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands, this he set aside, nailing it to the cross. Mark 15:30, save yourself and come down from the cross. Philippians 2:8, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Now, being found in human form, I mean, this is obviously describing the Son taking on an avatar. And through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of the cross. Okay. Luke 23:33, that was Colossians 1:20. Luke 23:33, and when they came to the place that is called the skull, there they crucified him and the criminals, one on his right, one on his left. And Matthew 27:32-44 relates the meeting of Simon, and they forced him to carry Jesus's cross. Okay. So The New Testament is saying that Jesus dies on a cross. And everybody knows that. But there's a curious thing that happens after Paul appears. Granted that they do mention the cross outside of the four Gospels in the later letters, this appears. Now, as I said, when I was a kid, my grandmother was a Jehovah's Witness, and she showed me the difference. It was later that I came up with the understanding that I'm about to hopefully impart. That the God, Jesus, in the book of Peter, Acts, and Galatians, dies on a tree. And that is certainly different than the cross. Dies on a tree. First Peter 2:24. He himself bore our sins in his body on the tree, that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed. Acts 5:30. The God of our fathers raised Jesus, whom you killed by hanging him on a tree. Acts 13:29. And when they had fulfilled all that was written of him, they took him down from the tree and laid him in the tomb. Galatians 3:13. Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us, for it is written, cursed is everyone that hangeth on a tree. So Christ hath redeemed us. Christ had redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us, for it is written, cursed everyone that hangs on a tree. So Christ liberated them. Let's talk about who Jesus said he was in the New Testament. John 8:12. Again, Jesus spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Without the sun is life, and the sun is light. This whole entire John 8:12 is describing the sun, not a man. John 1:5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The light. John 1:7. 1 John 1:7. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus, his son, cleanses us from all sins. So you have Jesus, the Son, and Christ, the light. Already you see a separation, because according to 1 John 1:7, but if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. And the blood of Jesus, his son, cleanses us from all sins. So there's the light and there's Jesus, his son. Okay. I think it's pretty clear. And that's 1 John. That's not John. 1 Peter 2:9. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his light. Right? Because the sun rises after the dark night. It calls you out of darkness into the light. Matthew 5:16, in the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. We all know that the atomic structure, according to science, is based on a Higgs boson. And that is entirely made of light. So your light can shine as well. All light is all things. Atoms are moving at a rate, and it is light. First John 1:5. This is the message we have heard from him and proclaim it to you, that God is light. That God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. This is God is light. This is John. This is 1 John 1:5. Okay? God is light, and in him there is no, it's obviously the sun. So they're referring to the Christ is the light. Christ is light. Matthew 5:14, you are the light of the world. Ephesians 5:8, walk as children of the light. 2 Corinthians 4:6, for God who said, let light shine out of darkness. John 9:5, as long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. John 9:5, Jesus says, as long as I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. So we definitely have Jesus representing himself as light, as the light. Which person can say that they are the light? The sun is the only light in the universe. We take it for granted, but without the sun, not even the planets would shine. So that's a pretty big statement. It's just like when the Emperor Haile Selassie said he was the Lion of Judah. He's saying he was the light. He was the greatest sun, time of the sun of all in July. Hotter than July, as Stevie Wonder's album is called, because the sun is the king of July. He's the Lion of Judah. So Jesus is saying he's the light. Let's take it back to the Old Testament and see what he says there. In Malachi 4:2, it couldn't be more explicit. He says, Malachi 4:2, he says, but for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings, and you will go forth and skip about like calves from the stall. The Son of Righteousness will rise. The Son of Righteousness. What other son is there but the Son? Okay? And if you look at this wording here very carefully, it literally says the Son of Righteousness. If you can see that. The Son. Not the S-O-N. The S-U-N. The Son of Righteousness. Okay, that's Malachi 4:2. So God is described as the Son again. Listen to Luke 1:7. Because of the tender mercy of our God, with which the sunrise from on high will visit us, to shine upon those who sit in darkness and the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. Sunrise. There it is again. Sun. Okay? Sunrise. That's not S-U-N. It's not S-O-N. I'm sorry. It's not S-O-N. Psalm 84:11. There's a very famous one we know. And it says, for the Lord God is a sun. Lord God is a sun and a shield. Because the earth has the protective shield over it. You see, when it sets off these rays, it has a protective shield, the magnetosphere, I believe it's called. There's also the Van Allen belt of radiation that is built up because the sun is sending this stuff, but we are protected by this shield. And it says the Lord God is a sun and a shield. Okay. Isaiah 9:2. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. Those who have lived in a dark land, the light shall shine upon them. It's clear. The people who walk in darkness shall see a great light. Those who lived in a dark land, the light shall shine upon them. It's very clear. You see, we like to mystify these things. It's not mystical. It's God of the Old Testament and the New Testament, the proper and true mimshallah, the proper and true marshal or marshal. I'm the marshal. The proper and true marshal is the sun. It's just not to be worshipped. Studied, not worshipped. The sun should be studied, not worshipped. That's the mistake we made. We worshipped these things. That's what it says in scriptures. They worshipped them. Doesn't say anything about studying now. You got to know how to farm, fish, and take care of your family. So let's read what Habakkuk says. Habakkuk. His radiance is like the sunlight. He has rays flashing from his hand, and there is the hiding of his power. Okay? He has rays flashing from his hand. Now, if you look at the god Akhenaten, you'll clearly see that the sun has rays in his hand. The god Akhenaten,
according to Encyclopedia Britannica,
you'll clearly see, if I can just pull up an appropriate photo here, which is just doing this on the fly, as you know. But you can see that the god, you can see the sun. That's Akhenaten. Oh my God. Akhenaten and Nefertiti.
according to Wikipedia.
Okay, so I'm so sorry about this. This was an unplanned bit of information I'm putting out here, but you can see that that's Akhenaten and one of his children. He's kissing the child. And the sun, which is the Aten, he called the Aten. He forbade all of Egypt from worshiping anything else but the Aten, and he built a new city for it. And this thing has hands. It's reaching out with hands, little hands of things reaching out, little clasping things. Okay, and this is a reference to Habakkuk saying, he has rays flashing from his hands. And clearly you can see the Aten has rays coming down. So there's a link between all of these things. So the four Gospels is about the sun. The letters of Paul is about a man. He dies on a tree. He dies on a cross. He's called Christ. He's called Jesus. He's the Son. He's the Father. This is the four Gospels. This is the letters of Paul. Let's look at that for a minute, because that's what you're dealing with. The sun, as it descends, because if you notice in the summertime, when you're standing around enjoying the sun, the beautiful hot sun in the summertime, it's right above your head. It's right above your head. It's giving a lot of light down on us all day. But in the winter, if you're looking towards the south, the sun is only coming up here on the horizon. It doesn't shine much, so we get very little light. See the difference between that? That and that? So it's super important. So the sun is down here in the winter, and it's up here in the summer. Okay? So the sun returns, it comes and it returns. Now, what they are trying to express in these four, first of all, the four Gospels, 1, 2, 3, 4, is obviously 4 points. There you have your first cross. That's the cross. That's where the sun dies. But the sun also dies in the winter. Now, why I want to say the cross? Because this is the cross of the earth, of the sun's path throughout the heavens, throughout the sidereal band, from winter into spring, where it's the month of Aries, and then he has the month of Libra to deal with. He's also the Lion of Judah here, and he's sleeping in the winter because he's down here, right? And these are the crosses. He's even here. He's 12 hours a day. 12 hours a day. He's short day. So he's got this cross. He's got these stations. This is stations of the cross. This is the original stations of the cross, not the 15 or so stations you see in the churches. This is the stations of the original cross, where the sun does something. Here, he's 12 hours. Here, he's short. Here, he's long. The cross. So the sun is on a cross. The sun is on a cross. Do you get that? I'm trying to drill into this. The sun is on a cross. But he also, when he's in the winter down here and he's wintering and it's short day, and they say the sun is dead, he is literally in the south, right? And down here somewhere, there's a constellation that looks like a cross, and it's called the Southern Cross. There's a constellation of stars that looks like that. Of course, they don't have the band in between, but they look like there are four of them. And so the sun, while down here, is, guess what, folks? I don't have to tell you guys. He's dying on the cross because he's dead. He's sleeping. He's sleeping on the cross, dying on the cross, sleep, dead, cousins. Dying on the cross. Up here, he's resurrected. So see, the sun has a cycle. So he goes from December to January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, back to December. He has to pass through all of these. And here's where he starts to shine the most. This just happens to coincide with the Earth's equator. The Earth is like this, and it has an equator. And when the sun is down here, we're in trouble because it's darkness. But suddenly it starts beginning to move back up. See what I'm doing here? It begins to move back north. And so he passes at some point over this midpoint. This midpoint here is the equator. It has to do with the equals, the equal numbers. And we call this Passover. So the sun literally passes over something. He passes over the equator. And so it is the sun. The Passover is the sun coming back to light our lives. You see? So Christ, as he dies on a cross, is the sun. The sun is Christ. Christ dies on a cross. A man named Jesus dies on a tree. And this happened in reality. This is why there's always a confusion between, is Jesus real or is Jesus not real? Well, in a sense he is, and in a sense he isn't, and in very higher senses, because Jesus Christ is so then you have Jesus Christ. So Christ is the Son in the four Gospels. And Jesus is the man in the letters. Jesus is the Son. He's man. But also Jesus is representative of white light. That is because by de facto, we got the idea of the whole Christ Son thing from India, from the Hindu, and before. As I said, Egypt. And the Son is Krishna. And Krishna is Christ. This is how you say it in the more easternly, more westernly way. So the Son is Christ, Krishna. And Krishna is black. He is a black being. When you see Krishna, he is black, yo. There is no question that he represents the original light, and that is black light, where all light proceeds from, where even the sun is scared to go, because the sun has to come out of the darkness. Krishna is that darkness. And that darkness reveals Jesus, or the white light, the light we can see. So Jesus then becomes open knowledge, because he is white light. Therefore, you have all the secular Jesus religions. Christ, on the other hand, is black light. Hidden, covert, cryptic. So when you're dealing with the Christ, you're dealing with a dark light, the hidden way. That's why Christ is more mystical in the four Gospels. And he's worldly. No law. No law in the letters of Paul. Because the letters of Paul is Jesus. This guy was just, he didn't care. He did not care and died, and Paul took pity on him. And the Son appeared to Paul, according to Paul, because Paul had to really verify this guy. So he said the Son appeared to him and told him to go preach about this guy, not Christ, right? About Jesus. But Christ is in the four Gospels, the 4 points, the original cardinal points of the sun, the stations of the cross. So black light, hidden, covert, mystical knowledge, open white light, everyone can do it. Jesus and Christ. So when you're talking about Jesus Christ, you're talking about a checkerboard pattern, right? You're talking about a checkerboard pattern of black and white. This is why it's so important to understand this whole checkerboard thing, because what you're talking about here is good and bad. You're talking about positive force, positive force, negative, like, and not negative in the sense that it's bad. I shouldn't even use that. It's there and not there. How about that? There and not there. How about that? There and not there. But not there does not mean that it is powerless. This is the most powerful force in the universe. This is expressing this. This is behind the sun. Black Krishna is behind the sun. The sun cannot exist without Black Krishna. But without the sun, Black Krishna cannot spread what Black Krishna knows. You understand? Black Krishna has to spread this knowledge. Black light has to open all blackness, all in the abyss, or Abyssinia. All in the Abyssinia has to be spread out. The black has to share with the white. The light has to be shed. But in this, there is always a translation problem. People believe that because the black light, the Black Krishna, can appear as a man on the planet, that all men are the Black Krishna. And that's not true. The black light can appear as a man as an avatar and have children that are blue and red, representing the first essence of light coming out of it, and the highest as well, nearest to where you can't see light, where it's all just light. So before you can't see it, there's colors, right? Like a refractor. You know what a refractor is, right? You just get the light in and it has many, it shows you all the colors. This is Krishna. This is the flesh, the earth, and this is all the doings of the gods. This is here. This is here. And this is here. So this is Jesus. And this is Krishna, the Son. You see how that works? Okay. You see how that is? That is what's going on, man. Jesus is the Son of Man. He is the man that Paul saw die in Jerusalem for the belief in this. The guy, Jesus, believed in what the four Gospels are telling you about. The 4 stations of the cross and the many activities that the Son does. That's what the 4 Gospels is about. The 4 stations of the cross, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. And the many activities that the Son does. He goes to see Aquarius, he plows like Taurus, he gets betrayed by the scorpion, the sting of the scorpion. In the Middle East is some lips, looks like that. If you get stung by a scorpion, you have a sting like this, then you're gonna die. And that's called the kiss of death. The KOD was given to him right here, right? And then he dies. That's the Sun, man. The Sun meeting Scorpio. Okay, so what I want to do now, lastly, is just go over, now that we've established that Jesus is unquestionably the Son, I'm sorry, Christ in the 4 Gospels is unquestionably the Son, and that Jesus is a man who followed Christ and who Paul wrote about, which is what Sevenaria is now teaching you. I'm going to show you a little bit about the path of the Son, and then we're going to go ahead and end this lesson. So just hold on a little bit longer. The path of the Son and how it relates to Jesus or the Christ. Okay, for sure you must have been wondering why there was no sound on about a minute of that while I was drawing that circle. That's because I actually forgot to put on my microphone, but I have it back on now, and hopefully you're hearing some sound. So what I was saying was that this circle is going to be made because we're going to show how Christ relates to the zodiac, right? As I was supposed to be saying, how Christ relates to the zodiac. Not only does does the sun, and Christ being the sun, as we've established, and not only does the sun, die on a cross here, but it also dies on this cross. And I'm about to draw this in a more detailed fashion. Okay, so sorry about the mic screw up. That was entirely my fault. And what I'm doing is I'm actually laying in the original cross, as I said. This is the cross that the sun literally has to contend with, because here we have the equinoxes. As you see, that's EQ, so that's equalizer, equal. Here we have the shortest day of the year and the longest day. So these are the four things that they studied before turning it into men. This is really what they established. And the sun's on a cross. Before they even understood that down here there was the Southern Cross, the sun's already on a cross, because we have to establish what this is. And I really should have explained to you before this that all you're looking at here is the sun's path throughout the year, since instead of representing the path as a series of risings back to the north, okay, the sun, these series of risings has points. They have points. The sun rises and it's to a point. It rises, it's to a point, to a point, to a point. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm creating a wave, because it's going to go back down again. It's going to come up and it's going to go back down. So there's what's called a sine wave, and that looks like this. And that's the path of the sun throughout the year, literally starting off in the colder months, making its way up north to the warmer months, and back down for the colder months, then back to March. Okay, so it's just a big wave. And what we've done here is we just cut this wave in half, so you get two. So in other words, you get the wave, and now you have two. And we've taken this and flipped it over here, so you have a shape like this now. Okay, you no longer have, you flip it over, and then I just made a circle out of it instead of a you see, so it went from a wave. Then when we cut this and you flip it, you get an oval, and then you just turn it into a circle, and you still have your line, because that's still the equator. And because you have here and here, you have to represent them, and they turn out to be solstices. What happens here is the solstice, 12 hours and 12 hours. So what you end up with is this. And that's why you end up with this. Okay, keep that in mind. Just look at that for a minute. That's why that ends up being this way. So we have the circle of the cross representing all of this stuff. Now what we have to do is basically lay in the path of Jesus throughout the New Testament, or the months of the year. So I'm just going to do that really quickly by creating some lines in the appropriate places. And this will take me a minute. And one more. One more. So this is the wheel of life. You've heard about the wheel of life, right? You've heard about the wheel in the sky, the great wheel in the sky. Well, it's like a roller coaster, but that's the wheel. You're basically just taking this and turning it on its edge and looking at it. You know, you're taking this, you're turning it, and you're looking at it with this point and this point connected. If you can just see it three-dimensionally, you'll see what I'm doing. You see what it's done. So you're still looking at the wave. It's just in here. You understand? It's now become the yin yang symbol, if you will. If you can see the yin yang symbol, then you'll know what I'm saying. All right. So these represent the months of the year. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and show you how this works out. And this is gonna take a while, but we're gonna show you how this works out. Okay. So we have Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus. This is Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and Sag. And this whole deal is how Jesus travels through the four Gospels. And I'm going to show you how. But first, I actually neglected to show you that on the globe of the earth, right, on the globe of the earth, we have a couple of lines besides these guys. In the path of this sine wave here is the earth. Okay, if you will. Sorry that's such a bad one. That's the equator. This is the sine wave. And here you've got what's called the Tropic of Cancer. And here you've got what's called the Tropic of Capricorn. The sun never sets below this. This is the point that it goes the lowest, and it never rises above that. So the northernmost countries will only see the sun get as far as what's called the Tropic of Cancer. That's why this is up here. Because when the sun gets here, this is what this is representing. This is the TOC, Tropic of Cancer. This other line outside of the equator is called the Tropic of Capricorn. Because it's down here. See Capricorn down here? The sun is in winter in Capricorn. When it reaches Capricorn, and it never shines past that light, past that line. That's the Tropic of Capricorn. Okay, so there's places that the sun has a barrier, and that becomes important in the gospel. So Jesus, we celebrate his birth on December 25th. Some cultures celebrate it on January 6th. Other cultures recognize the birth of the year in the month of Aries. during the Passover? Well, traditionally, Jesus was born on December 25th. That's when the sun is born. The sun is born because the sun, having the shortest time in the winter, begins to shine again for a longer period of time. And on December 25th is when it shines for a longer period of time. We say the sun is born. And just like Jesus, it begins to traverse its world. And the first thing it must do is go out into the world and face Saturn. That's the sun. Must face down Saturn, because Saturn is shining longer than the sun during the winter months. The sun peeps out for a couple of hours, and then it fades back while Saturn is in the sky all night. Well, it defeats Saturn. That's Jesus in the desert defeating Satan. And this is where we get that interplay between the four Gospels and Christ. So Christ defeats Satan as the sun defeats Saturn. The next step is he goes to see John. And John is a Baptist, pours water on his head because he's Aquarius. The next sign is when the snow begins to melt and the sun gets blessed with waters, new waters. He's an Aquarius. John the Baptist is the melting snow for the sun. The next thing is, because the snow has melted, he is now in the water. He becomes the fish that we talked about. Remember, we talked about that fish? Because he's been blessed by the waters. See, he's become the fish. And we're just going to step through this. You're going to recognize the gospel. He becomes the fish that John then declares the Lamb of God. Aries is a ram, but when a ram is young, it's a little lamb. And because he was the young Messiah, he was the lamb, but really he's Aries, the ram, the one that broke, that has the horns, that's ready to break through the equator. He's ready to break through, pass over. This happens in March. So Jesus becomes the Lamb of God. And after he becomes the Lamb of God declared by the waters, he begins to sow. He begins to sow. He begins to go around and talk to people, and it becomes a bull. He becomes Taurus the bull, because the bull walking in the fields breaks the ground. He begins to break the ground so things can be planted. And then he meets Gemini. It comes a point in the story where he meets, for instance, an older woman that's bleeding profusely for years. She wants to touch his garment. At the same time, there's a younger girl that's sleeping. These are the twins of Gemini. The twins of Gemini. Okay, two things happening. The sun is in Gemini. They're telling you in the Gospels how to follow the sun and where Horus is. You heard of Where's Waldo? They played Where's Horus before Where's Waldo. When he reaches Cancer, you can see that he is at Cancer and Leo, he is at his height. Jesus is healing. The sun heals in these, cures diseases in the old way of thinking. Then in Virgo, when the sun reaches the month of Virgo, his mother and his brothers, in other words, the moon and the stars, I see that, come to tell him to come home. They come to tell him, hey, there's a part in the Bible where they come looking for him. It says your mother and father are out, your mother and brother, mother and your family are outside looking for you, and they want you to come with them. And he says, my mother and my brothers. Who are my mother and my brothers? He goes, look out there. You see those people out there? That's my family. I don't know who those people are, but that's my family. I'm paraphrasing. But what's really happening in that scripture is not his mother Mary coming to get Jesus from a crowd, which is what we all grew up believing. It's actually the moon and the stars announcing the month of Virgo, because Mary is a virgin, and Virgo is a virgin. It means virgin, Virgo. The virgin Virgo, Virgo the virgin. And Mary is Virgo the virgin. So Mary comes to see the sun, or Virgo is seeing the sun, telling him it's time to go home or you're going to be in trouble. Because the sun does get in trouble over here. He gets into trouble. But that's before he gets into trouble. He meets Virgo, his mother, just as Christ did meet his family and refuse them, because he has to keep going. After this point, he gets into Libra, where he's betrayed. The son is betrayed. He's on the scales. People are after him. The Pharisees, Judas, all the people that don't like him, they're after him. That's the scales judging him. The scales of Libra. He's been judged. Now he has to be betrayed. So they send Scorpio, the front biter. He's not a backbiter. He's a front biter because they sent Scorpio the backbiter. My goodness. Sorry about that. It's been a rather long lesson. They sent Scorpio. He's a backbiter because he bites from his back. And when he bites you and leaves that mark in the Middle East, one of the scorpions leaves a kiss like that on your flesh, you're done. It's called the kiss of death. KOD. Somebody's going to name a band that, I can tell. But kiss of death is the scorpion. And that's what they say Jesus receives from Judas. He receives the kiss of death. So see, we're following this all the way around. Then the Roman soldiers. The Roman soldiers come in the garden to take him. Sagittarius, the horses. You see? And then you have Capricorn. Let me look up something really quick. Give me a second. Okay, yes, I was right. So the Sagittarius is the Romans. So I had to look up the sign. I was a little bit... The Roman soldiers coming in on their horses, Sagittarius with the bows and arrows, they're war. And that isn't what this sign means, but this is what it means in reference to the four Gospels. The Sagittarius, Roman soldiers took him. Then he becomes Capricorn, the scapegoat. The scapegoat. Capricorn, the scapegoat, except he doesn't escape. Or does he? The Muslims say he does escape. So maybe it follows all the way through. He is Capricorn, the scapegoat, because he does live. The sun comes back. And if you're looking at it as the sun, then he is Capricorn, the scapegoat, because he escapes and he comes back. And no matter what they do, they can't stop him going around, and around. Because he, the sun, is Christ. The Christ, or the crisp, or the black. You see? Sun, crisp, black. He is the sun, the essence behind the sun, the black light that we don't see, the black sun. That's really what this is. It's the black sun. That's what they're talking about. This Krishna that powers this white light. This white sun is powered by a black sun, right? And this white light then powers us. So Jesus and Christ. And this is the way the Gospels are laid out. Again, let's run through it. He's born in December. He goes to fight Saturn or Satan in the desert, defeat Satan. He has to go to John the Baptist, Aquarius, snow is melting. He goes into Pisces because that's the water is flowing, the fish, the Pisces. The sun, he is about to break over the equator. He is Aries, the ram horns, about to break through. Passover. He's Taurus, now able to break up the field. He's Gemini. He's healing both sides. The height of healing here, of course, Leo, he's powerful, all powerful. He recognizes that there's a limit, but he's all powerful. Recognizes that he's man. You see? Cancer, he's a human. He gets cancer. What do you call it when you get sick? You got cancer. When you're about to fall into your death, they call it you got cancer. Same thing happens. They got this from the sun. So he's Leo the powerful. Then, hey, the virgins try to calm him down. The people don't, the other stars, because this is really the other stars. They don't like him so much. He thinks he's too great. Thinks he's the Lion of Judah. This is like Mussolini in World War II against Haile Selassie. Thinks he's the Lion of Judah. Let's get him. So they get him. But he is the scapegoat. Capricorn. They use their Sagittarian war horses and armies to come in. But he's the Capri. He's the scapegoat. The Capri. He's the caprice. The caprice. So let's look at that for a while. I'll step away. Well, I think that we have pretty much put the needle into the garment along with the thread and pulled it tight and sewn this all together, that the four Gospels is the sun is Christ. Jesus is light. So never read it the same again. Light is knowledge. Let's break it down. The Son, Christ. Jesus is light. Light equals knowledge. To know the ledge. Good, evil. Christ is wisdom. The dome. The whiz. Wise. The is. You see? The dominant. Christ is black light. all things Krishna. Jesus is white light. Some things. Because why is it just some things? Because not everything can be seen in white light. In fact, some things are completely hidden, blinded by the light. Some things cannot be seen in white light, and that is the truth. And you have to think about that quite deeply, what I'm saying. Okay? There are even creatures that don't come out during the day, or flowers that don't bloom until at night. So even physical things, but I'm talking more metaphysical. So we've established that Christ, the black light, is what the four Gospels is all about. This is what the letters of Paul, right? So let's take a look at that for a minute. And I'm going to go ahead and thank you guys so much for watching this fourth production from Sevenaria University. And I'll go ahead and sign us out. And sign us out with a Sevenaria University tag up on the wall there, if you will. And I just want to really thank you guys for listening in, for checking out what I had to say tonight about, the two gods in the New Testament, Jesus and the Christ. And that this should help you as you're reading the New Testament in many ways. I'll have to discuss that some other time, how this helps, but I'm sure you can already see how it helps. As we said, Paul has no law. He follows no laws. Christ in Matthew 5:16 through 20 says it's all about the law. So we have two different gods. And that's really what I want to leave you with in finality. We have a God of law and a God of no law, because we have a man and we have the Son. Okay? So with that, I want to say thank you very much for joining me here at Sevenaria University. And I'm going to come back again with another episode real soon. And I really want to appreciate it. As you can see, I got a new camera. So we're looking pretty good now. You guys can read everything all nice. Not like it was. Remember to check us out at Facebook, Sevenaria University on Facebook. That's Sevenaria University. And also on YouTube, we're at Sevenaria at youtube.com. Sevenaria, 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 .youtube.com. So thank you guys so much. The next subject we'll get into is probably going to be, I don't know, the Anunnaki, UFOs, or maybe something else. Let me think about it. Until then, thanks again. And it's Israel signing off from Sevenaria University. Peace.